Friends, I am Vadim Open Yoga. Today, we are considering Yoga Smarana. In other words, there is such a direction as Yoga Smarana, or Yoga of Remembrance. One of the very serious components of your yoga training. Now we're going to talk about this. I remind you, OpenYogaClass.com, AITempUniversity.com are sites. We are at the Black Sea Festival, a joint project. Ask around. So, you and I must very clearly realize another component in what is called yoga training, and the name of yoga is mindfulness. That is, there are such things that we constantly say that there is yoga, reading aloud. It is an integral part of your education, the acquisition of knowledge in yoga, to make your brains concentrate, and so that the teaching reaches you. Finally, there is yoga, writing, or when you not only perceive something, but also write it down by hand. There are also a lot of positive moments. There is yoga, roughly speaking, questioning oneself. That is, all sorts of such methods of activating the mind, strengthening its concentration, control over unconscious thought forms. Or as in Patanjali in Rita, on the surface of the booth. That is, remember, Patanjali defined yoga as someone's lie not ratha. Control of thought forms on the surface of buddhi. Well, it's easy to say control, but how? How to control? What should I do? And that's just yoga reading aloud, yoga writing, yoga questioning. Those wrenches, then, that allow you to unscrew or tighten this nut in your head, yes. Do you know how it is so that unnecessary thoughts do not arise or direct them in the right direction? But as you understand, no. Yes, then yoga diksha, or yoga of knowledge transfer. You remember this example with Mowgli. Of course, you can reproduce the whole yoga yourself. Yoga itself insists on this, that your higher self is super powerful. And you can get any result that has ever been obtained by someone. Another conversation is that it takes a huge amount of time, and it is extremely difficult to do it. So it is prescribed not to waste time, but to do all the preparatory work yourself, until you meet like-minded people who have already moved a little further along this path, so that in practice with them you can prepare even more for a meeting with those who will bring you even closer to knowledge. So that by the time you meet your teacher, you are fully prepared. That is, you did not sit waiting for the teacher to come and do all the auxiliary work for you, but you yourself made active movements in this direction. And in fact, the knowledge that you get by reading certain texts yourself, or listening to them read by those who have been practicing them for a long time, extremely accelerates your training in yoga. And that is, here is the factor, as we call it, the text turns, well, began to turn into such an independent separate practice. If you feel the need for higher knowledge of yoga, but there is no teacher, look for the text. There is a text, start learning it, cramming it, pronouncing it out loud, rewriting it. Carry a handwritten text with you. And it's generally very. Well, even in some yoga schools, as it seems now, not only in India, but in other countries, such as Tibet there, and so on. It was generally an integral part. Wait for the teacher to come to you, or you will find a teacher, and something higher will be transmitted to you. Finally, we touched on such a very strange thing too that, strictly speaking, it's like there is a regular phone, and you can call somewhere. Imagine that in meditation, you start thinking about something, and suddenly, as if from nowhere, some revelations come to you. It didn't reach you, but suddenly it did. That is, such a thing is often described in the same India, that, as they say, you get some kind of correct thought transmission from those yogs who may be at a distance from you, but you somehow tune into this. On this wave, or I don't know how to say, how to call it, yes. Finally, it is often described in the same yoga diksha that some of you can experience very strong dreams, where it is not clear whether it was a dream or whether someone tried to teach you in a dream. Well, now I don't want to touch on this, because now we have to consider the yoga of mindfulness with you. Why is it extremely important? Because whatever initiation you receive, whatever you study, whatever you read or write, all these things are good. But they should lead to what, in general, was originally prescribed in the Vedas, namely remembrance. If you do not remember what you have studied before or what you have experienced, then this becomes a serious obstacle to the study of yoga. And in fact, the method of mindfulness is the main method in yoga. It is impossible to understand any other sections of yoga, such as Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga, if you are not working with the method of remembering. Or, in other words, in order to know how the world works right now, here you are faced with some objects and phenomena. According to the law of karma, in fact, you were the cause of what you have now. Therefore, what is necessary? It is necessary, as it were, to unscrew your whole life back and have this ability of remembering what happened before. In the same way, if you encounter anything during your life, then it would be very good, well, to recall those states that you experienced in yoga, those texts that you read, those teachings, instructions that were before that. Unfortunately, this is the scourge of modern civilization, clip thinking. People don't remember anything. People can only perceive a video clip if it lasts less than 3 minutes and immediately forgets about what. People start reading the page until they reach the end. They forget what they started about. That is why memory training is actually the basis of meditation. In general, how many people say all sorts of necessary and unnecessary words about meditation? It would be nice to learn to meditate. Well, it would be nice. And what should I do? And then some kind of, vague reasoning begins, thinking good will be good. Or well, meditation methods, or in yoga, it is called dhyana yoga. In other words, what is called meditation in the West is called dhya yoga in yoga. A lot, but you have to realize that mindfulness is the basis of everything. That is, the retention of some idea. Well, or an extreme case, holding the lack of an idea. Here is no idea. You remember your condition when you have no idea. That is, without the method of mindfulness, neither in meditation, nor in mind control, nor in your training, you will not go further. First of all, you will simply forget, and the deep meaning of some of these moments will not reach you. Secondly, there is no pratyahara without the method of remembrance. Or in yoga, it is also called disconnecting the senses from objects that, well, are perceived by these senses. That is, if you go, say, on a bus, in the subway or in a car, and someone nearby will be obsessively listening to the radio, or talking on the phone, there, or arguing, swearing, it will distract you extremely, irritate you. And every attempt to say to myself, yes, I can't hear, but I don't care, they practically don't work. But it's a completely different case. You are reading a detective story at the same time. And your consciousness is, as it were, pulled out of reality and transferred to this detective story. You may not even notice what's going on. And if there is no detective, then, of course, you can go, as it were, to the land of remembrance. For example, try to remember. The same Yoga Sutra was danced or some other things. In other words, it turns out that when you live in memory, you stop living in the universe around you. Accordingly, you are approaching the control of your consciousness, the control of your senses. And that is, it is necessary to develop mindfulness by all means. Well, immediately there are several such purely practical ways of what to do. Well, remember the saying, repetition is the mother of learning. If you are learning something new, return to what you have already gone through as often as possible. That is, at the beginning of the next lesson, always try to remember what happened before. And try yourself without the help of any records there. Although at the initial stage it is possible to use recordings, but it is best to remember without it. Train your memory, let's say, sit in meditation, remember everything in your yesterday. That's from the moment you woke up to the moment you fell asleep. Another way. If you are reading a book, read 2 or 3 books at once. And so, read a page in one, then read a page in another, then in the third. And just like that in a circle. It's clear that you just dive into one, then another. Here's some time of such stupidity, you start so opanky. But what was before that? Here it is, and the whole bestial nature of your mind is creeping out. Sometimes it's elusive, the bestial nature of the mind. There are many other methods, but the fact is that if you do not rely on the factor of remembrance, well, to put it mildly, everything else is useless. Finally, I would like to have another one here. You can give us a microphone so that we can count. Well, or here it is right here, as close as possible to the cameras. Here is as close as possible to the cameras so that you can hear some pieces from, well, in particular, Shivachandra's book, about the importance of the method of remembering. Of course, there are still a lot of excerpts on this subject in different texts. Please.
Shukta Shiva Chandra Vinava Bhattacharya, Tantra Tattva, or Principles of Tattva. The Principles of Tantra, Chapter 4, the practice of gayatri. The function of the antikaran, consisting of memory, is called Chito. In the field of practice, Chito takes the first place. Remembrance of the mantra and the Supreme, contemplation of the meaning of the mantra, meditation on the Supreme, and all related subjects are achieved through processes related to the function of the cheat, and by skipping a small piece. If something has not been perceived once, its recollection is impossible.
Aha, thanks a lot. In other words, you will find many references to the importance of mindfulness in various sources. And until then, well, because often people come and say, well, I don't know how to work the mind. Well, I don't know how to get rid of my bestiality. Well, everything seems to be fine, but what to do, right? Here. Yes, to practice, and to practice at first glance what, in general, you could apparently practice without yoga, namely, mindfulness, your mindfulness. Let's do this small part, so, yes, we are now let's do the open part. Let's finish, yes, we've already finished, right.